welcome back everybody. Hopefully another fun video today here at Blue Glow Electronics. It is 5/29/16 and we are going to do another question and answer series today. If you'll remember, when people send me emails with questions, if it's very specific to them, I'll just reply back. But if it's something I think the larger community could benefit from hearing both the question and the answer, I'm going to reply back to them and say, hey, I'm going to make a video of your question. And that's what we're here to do today, is go through quite a few of these questions I've gotten recently and put them into a video. Seems like lately the number of questions I get per day is going up exponentially. So everybody out there, be patient with me. I will do my best to respond to them. And a lot of times it's only on the weekends because I have a very busy day job during the weeks. But let's go ahead and dive in and get to our first question. Okay, first up, question here from an individual named Mal, and they called me one day on the phone. We talked a little bit, and I asked them to send me an email, and this is what was in there. So they basically got a Marantz 2325, and they've got two questions here. The first one is, hey, well, what kind of capacitor should I use to replace the big main power supply capacitors in this thing? And secondly, where do I get these 8-volt bi-pin 40 milliamp bulbs that are in these in the Marantz units? So I thought I'd show you both those real quick. Okay, this is what I've used in the past, and they're a direct bolt-in. The only difference, instead of being 15,000 microfarad, they're 18,000 microfarad, which work perfectly. These have an extremely long shelf life. Looks like DigiKey has 259 of them in stock. Part number 565-3331-ND, and they're United Chemicon brand, which is a really good brand capacitor. So highly recommend these for the 2325. Okay, on the 8-volt 40 amp Marantz bi-pins, two places. One, amkproducts.com. I'll put a picture here. They've got everything you're looking for in small quantities or bulk quantities. Second place, you can go to eBay, and they got them right here. Here's a set of 20 of them for $10. So you really can't go wrong either direction. If you're getting larger bulk quantities, I'd go the AMK products. If you just needed to do one unit, I might would go to eBay and get free shipping and have them to your house fairly quickly. Next question was here, I've been watching my YouTube series, got an Adcom, preamp, GFP 555. Like to have recapped and looked at, etc. Would you be willing to do this? And so first thing I did was pulled up the Adcom, looked at it and saw what it was, and let me show you a picture of it here. And as you can see here, this unit involves some digital logic, and I don't know if you read my website or not, but I really don't deal with units with digital logic. I don't mind circuit boards like in Marantz units, Pioneer, etc., but when you start getting into having logic chips on them, I really just don't maintain the equipment to do it with. So typically I pass on units like this and leave them to a expert focus more on this kind of stuff. And up next is quite a loaded question. In your opinion, which sounds better, the Marantz 2275 or the Fisher 400? Well, you might as well have asked the question, which sounds better, solid state or tube gear? Let me start by saying both of these are superb units, and they both have their own special qualities, I would say. The 2275 is an extremely solid receiver with lots of power behind it. Great specs as far as percent distortion, etc. Typically they're really flat across the spectrum. Just great receiver all around. Can't go wrong with it. Rock music, those things, they're a great little rock amplifier. However, the Fisher 400, any tube amplifier, you end up with a much, I would say, more softer sound in some ways, a more warm sound. You can go read on the internet. There's tons and tons of kind of debates between solid state and tube gear. The tube gear to me for jazz music, classical, easy listening, and just nice acoustic rock is amazing sounding. You want to throw on some pretty heavy stuff, some Megadeth or something, the 2275 may sound a little better. So it's a personal preference. It's kind of like asking me, what's better, my SUV or my sedan? Well, they're both great vehicles. They're both going to get you to and from work every day. Just one of them's a little more utilitarian and the other maybe a little more comfortable. So maybe I'd recommend trying one of both there and making a judgment for yourself. Okay, next question comes from an individual. Just want to know a little more about how to get started in this hobby, what gear to buy, test equipment, etc. But here's the gist of it. They're basically wanting to know, hey, if all I have is just a function generator and oscilloscope, what can I do to kind of test out a piece of audio gear? And hey, I will tell you, you're on the right track. The only other thing you probably need to add to that is a dummy load. So instead of me giving the answer to this right here, I think I'm going to make about a 20-minute video one day in the next week or two, where I just show you how to test out a piece of equipment using some basic stuff, voltmeter, function generator, oscilloscope, and a dummy load. And hopefully that'll give you some good ideas on just where to start with things. So hold tight and we'll turn this into a video by itself. Okay, this next question may look like a long one, but here's the short and narrow of it. Guy's got a Krell KSA 250 and he's asking, hey, I see there's some guys online called Amplifier Surgery that do the KSA 250s. And would I be better off to send it to them or send it to you? And they were kind of asking me to give a similar quote to what they had gotten from Amplifier Surgery. And I'll tell you, while I've worked on a few Krell units over time, they are not like my specialty. It doesn't mean I don't know how to work on them or how to service them. The challenge comes, I just don't keep tons of parts for Krell units around. And if somebody specializes in something, they usually have lots of parts to support them. Much like I specialize in Marantz gear, I keep a ton of Marantz parts around here. When I'm repairing something, I can do it quickly and simply, and I'm not having to order parts left and right. So, if you found somebody that focuses on Krell and they've got the parts in stock, I would say go for it. I don't look at this like I'm sending somebody to my competition. I look at it like I'm sending a customer to someone that that would service them well, maybe better than myself. So, especially if they've got parts in stock and lots of experience to match it. So, that's what I'd recommend. Same with that Adcom earlier. The guy asked me about, hey, can I work on one? Sure. Do I have parts for them? Not really. Can I find the parts and get them? Yeah. But if there's somebody out there that's what they do, hey, send your unit to somebody that's what they do. Myself personally, I'm really good at tube gear. So it's really my specialty. As you branch over into solid state, really I kind of try to stay focused on the Marantz, the Pioneer, some of the more mainstream stuff. I just don't have a ton of parts for a lot of the random stuff out there. So anyway, that's my take. And I sent the person back an email and said, if I were you, I'd go with the other the other service. But just my 2 cents worth. And our next question here comes from Tyler. He's basically saying, hey, I saw you recently refurbished a 2270, and I'm also looking for a 2270 that's been gone through by a trusted professional. Wonder if I had anything in my inventory. Well, the answer to that is yes, I probably do. The second part is, would I want to sell any of it? And the answer is probably not at this point in time. I'm more of a collector than I am I would say a dealer of vintage electronics at this point in time. So really what I'm trying to do is hoard up as much stuff as I can so that over the long haul, when I retire and open up a vintage electronics shop that also does, by the way, restoration of gear and maybe sells records on the side, because that's something else I do, is I deal at some record shows. I'll have some stock. So really not much for sale at this point in time, if anything. Sorry, it's probably not the answer people are looking for. And similarly, I get a lot of emails asking, hey, would you sell me some parts? I've got XYZ receiver. Could you put together a bundle of all the capacitors that I would need to replace in that thing? Well, it really doesn't work like that either for me. One, I don't have a list of, if you gave me a, Marantz 2230, I don't have a list of parts that I put in one of those. What I do is I put a 2230 on the bench and I start removing parts, and as I pull that part out, I basically put back in an exact replacement for that out of my parts bin. So I don't maintain a list, so it makes it almost impossible to do what people are asking for there. It's a great idea. I wish somebody would put together little packets and kits, and maybe I'll do that one day, but I just don't have the time or energy for that right now. Matter of fact, I'm really frustrated with the unit that I've got on the bench right now, because someone had replaced a bunch of capacitors in it, and they did not put the correct values in it. So as I'm going through to replace them, I'm realizing, whoa, this doesn't seem right. So I'm having to match back to the schematic every time. It's a little bit of a pain, but that's what people are just going to have to go through until they build up a parts inventory. Sadly, you can always sit down and make your own list and order from DigiKey, Mauser, etc. But parts sales are not a business that I'm in, sadly. And our next question comes from Alan. He's basically saying he's been working on a Marantz cassette deck and he's lost some screws. Do you have any idea where I can get any? Well, there's really two places I get Marantz screws from. The first place is a company called AMK Products. That's www.amkproducts.com. And they have, if you click on the left-hand side on the word Marantz on their website, they have linked then to all sorts of things that I buy. It's where I get my Marantz feed at for the chassis. If you're going to convert a Marantz over to a black faceplate, these are the guys that make the Marantz black faceplate. They sell lamp kits on there. It's not where I get my lamps at, but they sell lamp kits on there, and they sell screws, etc. So I highly recommend checking them out for the various Marantz products they have. If you can't find what you're looking for there, you're just going to have to resort to eBay and search for Marantz chassis screws or Marantz screws and see what that finds you. It may not be for the exact model that you have, but you should be able to look at the pictures and pick out something close enough to yours and order them that way. Hope this helped. Our next question here comes from Phil. He says, is there a good book on troubleshooting a stereo receiver? Well, Phil, I hate to tell you this, a little bit of bad news, but I've not found one. There's a lot of educational books out there on, electronics theory. I mean, if you don't have the basics of electronics, then yeah, go down to your local Barnes & Noble and get you an Electronics 101 type book. That's always going to be helpful. But then when you start applying this theory and knowledge to a specific application, like a turntable or a stereo receiver or a preamplifier, zero books out there that I'm aware of. People may reply and say, hey, yeah, there is one, but if it is, I'm not aware of it. It's exactly why I'm making these YouTube videos, to be honest. If I thought this knowledge was out there, I wouldn't be so motivated to spend my nights and weekends sitting around here making videos to post on the internet. It's a pretty selfless act because I'm getting not a lot out of this other than hopefully educating the rest of the world. So, but if you got more specific, like, hey, I'd like to know something about tube amplifier rectification, then yes, I can tell you a book out there on that subject. Or, maybe a book on tube preamps. Yes, I know some books out there. But beyond that, there's just some general theory. If you were looking for a book on how to restore a Marantz, it really doesn't apply out there. And so that's why myself and many others are out here making great videos to try to help educate. And Donald sent in a question very similar to one I got before. It was basically saying, hey, I'm just getting started in this hobby. I noticed you have the same soldering station I do. I'd like some advice on how to get started a little further into this. So if you remember a little bit ago, I mentioned that I was going to do like a 20-minute video on just some basic setup, an audio generator, an oscilloscope, a voltmeter, maybe a dummy load. I think I'll address this exact same question with that 20-minute video here in the next week or two. Stay tuned. Okay, up next, a question from Robert. He's basically saying, hey, thanks for the video you did on the Yamaha CR1040 lamp replacement. He has a Yamaha CR640, which looks the same, and he's trying to replace the bulbs. But he went in there and unsoldered some, soldered in a new bulb, and it didn't light up. So he's asking, is there any chance I have a bad bulb, etc., etc.? Can I ship the bulb to you and have you check it out? Well, let me tell you what to do, Robert. If I was in the mood of telling people what to do, I would say go out and buy you a digital multimeter. You can get one cheap. Right here's one for $48 on Amazon. It'll be at your door in 2 days. Otherwise, you can go to, you can literally go to Walmart or your local hardware store, Lowe's, Home Depot, and you can pick up one for that or less. Maybe as cheap as $20 or $25. Take the thing and use the continuity test on it. Put it on ohms. Put it on continuity beep. And then determine, put it on both sides of that bulb and see if it beeps. If it does, you've got continuity through the bulb, means the bulb is good. The other thing you can do with that multimeter is then stick it down there on the post where you're attaching this bulb to, and is put it on DC voltage and see if you get any DC voltage across those pins. If you do, then great, maybe you got some bad wiring, need to figure that out. If you don't have any voltage there, then you definitely got something wrong with the unit causing the bulb not to light up because it's not supplying power to it. So a simple little multimeter would help you solve both of the challenges you're facing right now, and you probably learned something along the way. Lots of good videos out there on how to use a multimeter. I don't need to make one on that subject. Watch a couple videos and you'd be a rock star. Good luck. Okay, we're going to do a useful tech tip today, or hopefully you'll find it useful. I get questions from people all the time saying, hey, I'm wanting to build a system. Can you help me put it together? And usually they have some idea of what kind of receiver or amplifier they're wanting, but usually where they don't have a good idea is, what kind of speaker wires should I use? You know, what kind of connectors, etc. And so if you'll remember in my recent video I did with Dennis Had, we got into talking a little bit about what I called audio foolery, in other words, snake oil products out there in the industry. And so I just want to clear up from my vantage point. Here's where I am with speaker cables. You need to buy good enough speaker cables that the sheathing around the copper wire is one, air sealed so that air can't get in there and cause the copper to oxidize and turn green on you. And two, it needs to be finely braided wire so that you can bend it easily and it doesn't break on you. And you can jump into the $20 cables. Monster Cable makes a great product here in this space. Here's a link to an eBay auction. This is where I buy my personal speaker cables from. This guy uses really good Monster Cable, and then he used really good Nakamichi branded banana plug jacks on each end, and really makes for a nice set of speaker cables. Be careful when you go to order these. Each cable he's selling, and he has them in multiple lengths. You can get 10 foot, 16 foot, 20 feet, or you can email him and he'll make you whatever custom length you want. But you only get one. So here in this auction, you see $22.95. That is for one 10-foot cable. If you're running a stereo setup, you will need two of those. So make sure you order two of them at a time. I'll tell you what I personally do. When I set up a room, I will measure from the receiver down to the ground, across the floor, up to the back of the speaker on the left channel. And let's just say maybe that's a 10-foot cable. And then I'll do the same thing running to the right. And let's say maybe that's a 15-foot cable. I would then order two different size cables from this guy, a 10-foot and a 16, and use them appropriately, because you want to keep your speaker wires as short as possible. So get the right length, but don't get too short or you won't be able to go all the way to the floor, kind of drape across and come back up properly. All right, let me first start by saying that in the Monster Cable brand line, they've got low-end stuff that's the $20 cables I was mentioning, and they've got the high-end, hundreds of dollars cables. And so when I was talking Monster Cables earlier, I was talking the $20 cable versus some of their custom high-end stuff. And you can see here in this picture, this is not a Monster Cable, but it's similar. It's the kind of stuff that you see a lot of high-end audio shops kind of make custom build out there these days. And their goal is to, produce an extremely high-quality cable for you. I agree these cables have great aesthetics. I agree these cables look absolutely phenomenal. And I think they will work absolutely phenomenal. But what I'm saying is I don't think they're any better than the $20 Monster Cables or whatever brand you happen to buy at your local shop that doesn't cost an arm and a leg. As long as, like I said, as long as it's got a good sheath around it, kind of keeps the air out so it doesn't oxidize, has good flexible, tightly braided wire in it that lets it be flexible, but yet still have a lot of surface area and continuity there for your audio to flow through, then I think you're fine. But I found this next article very, very interesting. It's basically, it's been out there a while, but it's a death match kind of It was monster cables, they're really high-end ones, versus a coat hanger. And they hooked up some really high-end speakers to a really high-end setup, and they brought in some audio files to see if they could tell the difference in kind of a blind test. And guess what? They could not tell which ones were the high-end cables versus which one was the coat hanger. The problem with the coat hanger is it's not practical. It doesn't bend well, probably rust over time, etc. So that's why I'm saying just get some cables good enough. Do not spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on speaker cables. I think you would end up with good stuff. It may look aesthetically great, but I think at the end of the day, you will spend way more money than you need to, and probably the $20 per cable would have served you just as well. And up next, you really get me on my high horse about this. There's several things wrong with this picture right here. One, it's extremely high-end power cable someone has made, and thing looks like a boa laying behind your amplifier. Snake, that is, right on line with snake oil. Second, you notice the little risers that lift the speaker cables and the power cable off the floor. Well, from an electrical engineer standpoint, let me lay it out there on this power line stuff for you, okay? First off, it is not the job of your power cable to filter out any kind of bad noise or whatever that comes over your power line. That is the job of your amplifier. Your amplifier needs to have a really good power supply, and it is its job to filter out the noise. I mean, what you're getting from the power line is what is supposed to be there. It's expected. It is a noisy 60 hertz, 120 volt if you're in the US, AC power signal that is coming from the generator. After it goes on the other side of that wall where that $1,000 cable right there was, it goes into your residential house wiring that then leaves your house and probably goes under the ground or above air that birds sit on and goes to a power line. And once it gets to a power pole out at your road, it goes to a transformer and then it goes down the road. So if you think adding the last 6 feet of your power cable, something high-end, is going to improve the sound of your amplifier after the signal came from the power generation, your power company, 17 miles away through the air with birds sitting on it, you're fooling yourself. So don't do it. Get a nice cable with an IAC connector on the end of it. Make sure it's flexible. Make sure it's the right length. Plug it in and be happy. You do not need to suspend your AC cable off the ground. It does absolutely nothing. So when I talk about auto foolery, snake oil, this is the stuff I'm talking about. People get obsessed with trying to perfect their systems, take it to the next level. They want to hear just something that sounds just a little better than what they've got today. So they start spending crazy money in crazy places. Let me tell you where to spend your money if you want your stereo system to sound better. First off, the audio source. If you're a vinyl guy, spend your money on your cartridge. Plain and simple. The higher end cartridges do sound better. I run an Orthetron 2M Black. It's about a $600 or $700 cartridge. Sounds phenomenal. Okay. The next thing, go to the other end of the spectrum. Go to what produces your sound, your speakers. Get some decent speakers. Those two items affect your sound more than anything else. From there, then you can start, swapping out your amplifier, your preamps, etc. But if your source is not right, you don't have anything good to amplify to begin with. So don't start with the amplifier. Start with the cartridge or your CD player or your MP3 player, whatever it is. Get away from MP3s, go to FLAC or some other, uncompressed audio files. That will help you, and get yourself a set of decent speakers. I'm going to jump off my soapbox right now. Okay, now I'm off my soapbox. Let me tell you how to hook these stereo speaker wires up to your vintage audio gear. First off, most decent speakers of any quality will have a jack on them, just like this, that you can plug in your banana plugs for your speakers. Okay, if your speakers have jacks on them that look like this, you may want to reconsider them as your speakers. Almost any speaker worthy of audio quality, high-end audio quality, will not have these kind of connectors on these. These are cheap little connectors made for cheap low-end stereo setups, and so if this is what you got, you might want to rethink your speaker selection. And so if you've got good quality banana speaker plugs on the back of your speakers, then you're going to want to have the same on the back of your amplifier. And most modern amplifiers of any decent quality would probably have this, but a lot of your older vintages ones won't. They'll have little screw-on terminal strips and whatnot on the back of the amplifier. So you're going to have to do something slightly different. And these little adapter plugs make that possible. If you'll notice here, it's what I usually Google is banana spade, and that will bring up many eBay auctions, and here you can buy a pack of 8 of them. Let me show you what these things look like. They turn out really great. Here's my Marantz 225 amplifier with these little things installed, and you can see here I'm using the exact same speaker wires I was pointing out to you, and they look phenomenal. They absolutely work phenomenal. Matter of fact, here's a 2 sets of them for you to check out. They just end up looking great, and they work great. They plug into the speakers well, and I can't give enough great compliments to how these things work out. Okay, and the final part of this tech tip is to, when you get these things, apply a little bit of Loctite, the medium strength or the heavy duty strength. The bottom line is you don't want those things to ever come unscrewed, and they do quite easily. So always drop some Loctite on them, and it kind of seals things up really well and never have to worry about them. And I buy enough of these things that I keep them on all my vintage gear. So if you go in here and pull off, say, my Fisher 500 off the shelf, there would be a set on the back of them. You go grab my Macintosh, there's a set on them. I just leave them on there. They're pretty cheap and cheap enough to do that. So hope everybody enjoyed today's both question and answer session and a little bit of a tech tip. And sorry I got on my soapbox, but sometimes this high-end stuff where people are really wasting their money kind of gets under my skin, and I'd rather bring it back to an electrical engineering kind of foundation and what's real and what's not, and talk through it a little bit. But thanks again, everybody. Stay tuned. We'll keep making these things, and hopefully soon I'll make that short little 20-minute video just on how to use maybe an audio generator, an oscilloscope, a voltmeter, and a dummy load to do some basic audio testing. Thanks again, and keep watching, keep giving me feedback, and keep sending the questions.